Hello and welcome back to another episode of Not Overthinking. Taimur, how are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm here at home. I've got my I don't know if you can see this on the thing because it might cut out my video a bit. Got my fish tank going in the background. I recently finally managed to get my hands on some more CO2 for my fish tank. Quite hard to acquire CO2 cylinders in the UK, but I managed to do it. Yeah, so I'm happy just working from home today. Where are you now? So you're in Hong Kong or something?
I'm in Hong Kong, yeah. After getting married, we went to Costa Rica for about 10 days and then went to Nevada in the US for Burning Man. And then we've been in Hong Kong for the last couple of days.
Wow, okay, so a lot to get into.
A lot to get into,
But yeah, I
yeah.
guess this is I guess unless I mean you've sort of hard launched the marriage already on Instagram.
That's right.
So depending on how loyal the listeners are to you individually, they probably already knew about this, but maybe not. But yeah, this that's huge, man.
Yeah,
How
man.
uh
We
how
got
does it
married.
feel?
It feels good. Feels good to be a married man. I guess you've been a married man for like 2 years now at this point.
Veteran, mate.
You're a proper veteran married man. Yeah. No, it feels good. It's like nice to have gotten it out of the way. I thought the wedding day was particularly enjoyable. I thought you did a very good job on the speech. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And it's nice to. It's just nice to have like some sort of as close to certainty as anyone can reasonably have in life
Right,
in
yeah,
this
yeah.
in this in this area in this domain of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, I was thinking the other day. Yeah, I think often if I'm hanging out with friends who aren't married, um, who are kind of like, on the dating apps or, trying to meet people and stuff like this, I think that's when I feel particularly grateful of like, oh man, it's actually it's pretty tough out there, and so, I feel lucky to have that sorted.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely nice. Any tips that you've gotten from being a marriage veteran?
Marriage veteran tips. Let me think. Obviously, there's There's tips that one would say on a podcast, and there's tips that one would say in the public domain.
Yeah, so if we focus on the ones that are acceptable to be shared in the public domain.
uh, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Maybe we can revisit that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so you got married, and then what? So where was the honeymoon? What was the sitch?
Honeymoon was in Costa Rica. I kind of wanted to do a pod on the honeymoon just to have the symmetry.
Like I did, yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh yeah, that would have been
that would have been
good. We
fun.
should have done it.
Yeah, it occurred to me on the flight there, and then it just sort of completely went out of my mind. Otherwise, I would have messaged you to be like, "Hey, should we pod?"
Yeah.
Um, so Costa Rica was very nice. We stayed in this volcanic, tropical-y type, rainforesty type area for a few days, and then in
Sick.
this resort in some bay by the beach for another few days, which is very relaxing. This is the longest
And you,
time I've taken off of work, so I only got
yeah,
back into
when you
work
say it
like two
was
days
off
ago.
of work, what, like, did you literally do zero work?
Yeah, I pretty much didn't open my laptop at all. I did a bit of watching YouTube videos and like reading Substacks and stuff, which could ostensibly be called work. Didn't
Hmm.
send any emails, didn't check any Slack messages, didn't do any Zoom calls. Yeah, so the longest break I think I've ever taken from work in 7 years over the
Was
last
that
like
not
3 weeks.
was that nice? I mean, I feel like your default state would be, I think some people's relationship with work is that like just doing, just having some work looming over them or doing some work will kind of like kill the vibe for them like the whole day. But I don't think that's your relationship with work. Like probably if you have, let's say you and the missus are just like chilling out by the pool for like 2 hours or 3 hours, you're on your laptop or whatever, you're probably happy just doing a little bit of bits and bobs and checking Slack or something, right? Like that's you'd be happy doing that, I'm
Yeah, I would be
guessing.
happy doing that. It was kind of nice. Not feeling okay. So there's like a few different aspects to my, shall we call it, work. One is meetings. It was nice to just be fully opted out of all Zoom calls.
Oh yeah, it's nice. Yeah, yeah. Not beholden
Um,
to the calendar. Yeah.
Another one is like creating stuff, like filming YouTube videos and writing newsletters. It was also nice to not to be completely off the grid in that
Okay.
domain. So the only thing that was really left on the work side was consuming content, as it were, and coming up with ideas and journaling and stuff. And so I was doing those things. So I was reading and watching stuff that was ostensibly or could be related to work. And when I have free time and have got some ideas floating around, I'll just journal about them and stuff. But I don't really call that work just because it's just
Okay, fair. Yeah,
it's just life.
yeah.
Yeah.
But did you see any cool animals in Costa Rica? They've got some good nature. They got good like snorkeling, scuba diving.
Yeah, we went. Well, we did some zip lining through the rainforest. It was kind of fun. Saw some like pumas and some sloths and things like that. I don't really get the whole looking at animals thing.
Animals guy.
Yeah, I'm not a big animals guy.
What about underwater?
We didn't
Does that change
really.
the equation?
No, not really actually. So Izzy went snorkeling at the beach kind of area.
Oh yeah. How was that?
I opted out of that one because there was a tennis drills hour-long thing instead at that same time, and I was like, I would much rather play tennis than do snorkeling. She really enjoyed it. She loves looking at the animals, and we went to some like nature reserves and things like that, and she was like absolutely enthralled by the nature. But I feel like I don't quite get it because I was thinking about this. It's like I could go snorkeling. But given the choice between snorkeling and playing tennis, I'd much rather play tennis. Given the choice between snorkeling and just like sitting there on the balcony reading a book, I would rather sit there on the balcony reading a book. So like, what am I missing about like the nature thing that I don't quite get it?
I think the thing about like snorkeling, I mean, look, there's a big spectrum of snorkeling, and there've been times like, okay, for example, we went to Portugal. We went to Madeira in Portugal a couple of months ago or something. And the snorkeling was crap. Like the water was cold. It was like kind of murky. It was kind of like, there was sediment in the water. Not really any fish. Maybe there's some fish, but they're basically the same color as the rocks. So that kind of snorkeling is definitely not worth it because it is a faff to like get wet, get dried, all of that kind of stuff. And if it's cold as well, it's definitely not worth it, I think. But I think somewhere like Costa Rica, where you can, I think there's probably a lot of places where you just like go into the water off the beach, and basically immediately, if you put your head in the water, there's like cool stuff. And I don't know, it just feels like you're in a different world. You can kind of explore. Yeah, that's probably how I'd characterize it. It's kind of like going into a different world and being able to kind of explore stuff. Yeah, but I guess you have to be interested in that world.
Yeah, I think you've always had an affinity to fish more so than I have. That's something Izzy's very into as well. She's had a fish tank all her life too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but otherwise Costa Rica was very relaxing. We didn't do that much. Mostly chilled in the resort and did a few activities here and there.
All right, and then so what's the deal with Burning Man? Can you? I mean, I don't think I fully understand the concept. And I'm kind of adjacent to that kind of stuff. So can you explain the concept to the sort of average listener of Not Overthinking?
Yeah, okay. So, how to describe Burning Man? Okay, so the first thing to say is sort of in the camp that we were part of.
Okay, so you're part of a camp? Is this part
of a camp.
Living in a tent?
I'll explain more about the camp in a moment. But as part of the camp, one of the workshops that the camp was going to put on, but ended up not doing, was a workshop titled "What is Burning Man?" where people rock up to try and describe what Burning Man is.
Yeah.
So the fact that there is a workshop on this camp titled "What is Burning Man" also shows that it's very hard to describe what Burning Man is. But I'll try my best to sort of explain it to myself before I went on the thing to appreciate what it was. So Burning Man is a thing that happens every year. That's been happening every year since 1986, and it is after the first a few years, it moved to the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, which is basically a desert in the middle of nowhere. Okay. Where the idea is that for a week you are just living in this desert. So Burning Man is has a bunch of different levels, and you can sort of it's almost like having these different dials, and you can sort of dial them up and down depending on how you feel. So on one level, Burning Man is a week-long camping holiday where you live in a tent in the middle of the desert. That's like one part of the appeal. Some people choose to stay in RVs and camper vans and stuff. We chose to stay in a tent. You could either camp by yourself. You could do free camping, which is when you're sort of just camping by yourself and you have to bring your own water and your own food, or you can join a camp which is like a commune type thing where 40
Yeah.
people or 30 people or 20 people or 50 people all
Yeah.
get together, pool resources. Everyone stays in their own tent, but you
What are the
do like,
resources? Because you're in the desert, right? So like presumably someone has to bring 100 bottles of water, 2 liter bottles of water, so that no one dies or something, right? Like
yeah,
who's
no,
who's
exactly.
bringing that stuff?
Yeah, when you join a camp, the camp
Yeah.
has like a camp leader. So it's like a group of
Oh,
40
okay,
people, and
okay.
the
And
camp.
they're like,
So
hey, someone needs to bring this, someone needs to bring that,
yeah,
Okay.
all that kind of stuff. In our case, our camp was very, very organized and has been doing it since like 2006 or something absurd like that. And so the camp actually has rented a storage unit that they leave in Nevada at all times that includes gallons and gallons and gallons of water and electric wiring and tents and shade and stuff. It was like a
Oh, cool. Yeah.
ridiculously sick operation where we rocked up, and so the first couple of days are the build days, where if you're
Yeah.
part of a camp, yes, you set up your own tent, but the idea is that your camp is also setting up shop for each other. So we set up a little kitchen tent and a little shade tent, a back of
Hmm.
house and a front of house. And the idea is that every camp has to provide an offering to the rest of the community of Burning Man.
Okay.
So
All right. Nice.
as soon as you
That's
enter the
pretty cool.
desert, money
Yeah.
becomes money is not a thing anymore. Everything is free.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the idea is that you give, and you give in the spirit of gifting, and you receive in
Yeah.
the spirit of gifting. So our
Okay.
camp's offering was frozen coffee every day for like 5 hours, and like there was a
Cool.
bar shift in the evenings, and so we set up like it was sort of like, you know how we used to build blanket forts when we were kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, imagine that, but with a group of 40 adults, of whom 35 are engineers who work at Google and SpaceX and stuff, who all do
Okay.
like DIY projects in their spare time, who all, and this
Nice.
like incredible like DIYing, woodworking,
Yeah.
setting up like sort of these two massive ass domes using like metal rods and like, thinging them into shape with power tools and like jackhammering things into the ground, into the
Yeah.
desert. And
Oh
the idea
wow.
is you build this thing up for the first couple of days, then you chill in the camp, you provide your offerings, and then at the end of it, you tear it down. And the idea is
Yeah.
that you leave no trace. So the idea is that in
Yeah.
theory, the desert becomes completely sort of back to normal because everyone's
Yeah.
taken
Yeah.
their stuff away. Um,
That
so
sounds
on,
pretty epic, man.
it's really cool. So it's like on one level it's this camping trip, on another level it's like this DIY kind of project type thing where pretty much everyone who was there, at least in my group, were all like had done woodworking for their whole life and built stuff. Some guy
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
in, like had built like a sun and moon like rotating lamp. This guy had also programmed some like lights that he'd laser cut into this sort of like cool pattern with panels that like with a Raspberry Pi or something, so that it sort of changed to the beat of the music.
Hmm.
They had a sound system that had like DJ mixy thingy bobbies, and it was really, really cool.
Nice. Okay.
So
Um,
one level is
what's the
camping,
like?
one level is DIY. The third level is drugs. So
Okay.
drugs are a common feature of Burning Man, where in some ways, I was trying to get an estimate on this. I think at least 2/3 of the people, if not more, were on some sort of drug most of the evenings.
Okay.
I think people were mostly sober during the daytime.
Are we
But
talking
then,
like weed or psychedelics or
oh, we're talking like MDMA, LSD, mushrooms. So, yeah, there was a smell of weed quite a lot. There's a lot of alcohol. I didn't really see much in the way of like the harder stuff,
Okay.
but I'm sure it was a thing. Our camp
Yeah.
was very wholesome, so we weren't really, doing the hard stuff, as it were.
Nice.
And so in the daytime, I think broadly people are pretty sober. But then at nighttime, when the sun sets around 6 p.m., that's when things start to get interesting because actually a lot happens at night. And a lot of the camps do their offerings at nighttime. And you're in the
What
desert.
kind of offerings are other people doing?
So the camp next to us was doing like a international post office where they just had loads of postcards and they would send a postcard for you anywhere in the world. So you would just write it out. There were like postcards of the desert and things, and they could send it to people on the playa, i.e. in the desert, but also outside. So people could just rock up and write postcards. There was one that we went to every day, which was an organic fruit and veg offering, where they brought 2 truckfuls of organic fruit and veg, and they were just supplying it every day, just chopping it. And we just went every single day, spending 2 hours there, just reading some books, chilling on their sofas because they brought sofas as well, and just eating watermelons and melons with like some spices and salt and stuff. There were camps. There was like a math camp, which was like Stanford maths professors who've been doing it since day one.
Oh, dude,
where
sick.
they have like this big ass teepee, and at 3:14 they serve pie. So you know,
Oh,
and the idea, and they have like whiteboards and stuff with like maths challengey type puzzles.
did you do some
Where
maths? That sounds
yeah,
fun.
yeah, we chilled there for a couple of hours because it's a nice shade as well. They had some chairs and you could just talk to
Did you
them
do some
and hang out.
maths?
Yeah, I tried solving one of the puzzles and then we decided, actually, it's going to take too long. We kind of have an inkling of what the solution is, but like, let's not bother. Let's just go
Okay.
back home. There's lots of musical camps, some open mic type things. There are a few adult themed offerings. Maybe like 5 to 10% of them were like adult themed camps.
Bloody hell.
Um,
Okay.
so those are
All
the
right.
sorts of offerings. Lots of people offering like free alcohol, free drinks, free food. There was like a bacon camp. There was like a Japanese. There was a whole like Japanese village where they just erected an entire like freaking like Japanese village where made of multiple camps that all like one of them was like bao buns, one of them was ramen, one of
Yeah.
them was like sake, one of them was like a Japanese bathhouse type situation where they'd brought in a van that was like a sauna. It was
Yeah.
just it's and if you imagine like 70,000 people all doing this,
Yeah.
where to walk from one end of Burning Man to the other would take you like an hour and a half to 2 hours, and in
Okay.
between there are like
All this crazy stuff. Yeah.
hundreds of camps. Like you walk 2 minutes and you're at the next camp,
Yeah.
another 2 minutes and you're at the next
That
one, and
sounds
there are
pretty
literally
epic. Yeah.
hundreds, and it's
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Well, did you I mean, I guess part of the point is you're meant to like socialize with other camps and stuff. Like, did you I mean, what were you doing, right? Like, no offense, you're not the DIY guy, right? You're not the you didn't bring the fruit and veg. Like, yeah, I guess what does someone like you do at the Burning Man?
Yeah, so we rocked up on like the Sunday and helped with the building of stuff. So I
Okay.
became a
Yeah. Yeah.
DIY guy, mostly
Okay.
just
Yeah.
following instructions from other people.
Fair
I'm like,
enough. Yeah.
hey Tate, how can I help? And he's like, great, we need help putting up the sign. And it's like, all right, cool, that's a whole job. We need help fixing the
Yeah.
dome. We need help setting up the things, or like dusting down the cushions, or all of that kind of stuff. Getting on the ladder and like putting the LED lights up at the top so that they're sort of like looking nice. And then someone who's actually DIY will do the wiring and the electricals and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then beyond that, we signed up for different shifts. So I had like 2 cooking shifts and 2 coffee shifts. It just so happened that all of those were on the final day. So my final day was like a work day where
Okay.
I did Mimi and Pablo did cooked breakfast for everyone in the morning. Then we did our 2 coffee shifts, and then we cooked a dinner for everyone in the evening. Outside of that, it's sort of like May balls at Cambridge or like balls at Oxford, where you can just sort of like roam around and go to different stalls. And there's like a whole book, and people have made apps for this as well that
Yeah.
shows
Yeah.
where and when everything is happening.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so we were like, okay, cool. What do we fancy doing this morning? Oh, like the fruit and veg stall has watermelon today. Great, let's go there. And then, oh, there's a
Yeah.
cool workshop about like radical intimacy and how to improve your relationship at like 3 p.m. At location H630. All right, cool. So that'll be about a 10-minute cycle there. Cool, let's go for that. Then, oh, it's getting a bit grimy. Should we find the shower car and see if we can have a shower
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
mostly just
Okay.
sort of meandering
Yeah.
through,
Yeah. Yeah.
having a bit of an intention of like, oh, it'd be cool to go to thing X, but then en
Yeah.
route to thing X, usually you find, oh, thing Y looks
Yeah.
interesting. Let's pop into thing Y, and then
Okay.
the day gets kind of derailed.
And how egalitarian is it actually? Because you know, like anyone can go, right? Like you can just buy a ticket and show up as like Joe Schmo. But also you've got, famous YouTubers like you there. You've got like Mark Zuckerberg and those kinds of guys there, probably the Google guys, what? Yeah, like, is there like I mean, there's got to be some social hierarchy. Like, presumably Zuck and Larry Page and these guys are not, they're not getting organic vegetables with the rest of the gang. Like, what are they up to?
I think if you're at the level of Zuck or Larry Page, apparently Elon rocks up
Yeah.
some years. I don't quite know. Like, I didn't see anyone that famous, but there were, for example, someone in my camp had sold a company for like 100 million, and you just wouldn't. It was a lot of like tech type people that you wouldn't have heard of, but who might be like
sure.
stupidly rich, that kind of thing. So those sorts of people are interacting with the fruit and veg market just like any other.
Yeah. I can see that, but I think the sort of Zuck Elon type level of like, you are recognizable by like anyone who's on the internet. What are they like? You didn't see anyone like that, or like what?
No, but one thing
do
I
you have
heard.
a sense
So
of what they're up to?
I think so. I heard what Elon gets up to. So part of Burning Man is you have these camps. Part of Burning Man is
Yeah.
you in these tents and stuff. There's also a big part of it that's art. So like there's like the Burning Man organization erects this man in the middle of the desert.
Yeah,
and
yeah. And
it's
then you
like
set it on fire or something.
and you set it on fire at the end, which is like super cool because there's like fire performers and like every fireworks and everything. But loads of people rock up with art installations that they put all around the desert. They're like hundreds of pieces of art. Some are like animals, some are like yeah, just sort of art type bits. There are also art cars, so vehicles that people have adapted to look funky and be weird. So for example, there might be a whole sort of monster truck that someone has repurposed into like a massive DJ soundstage where they drive it out into the farther reaches of the desert. There's like a ridiculously high-end sound system on it. People are on the truck dancing along. There's a DJ. There are people on the ground at the desert sort of dancing along. I heard that what Elon does is that he flies in on his private jet. He has like an art car that he just stays on, which is sort of like the private yacht equivalent of what you do in the desert, where you have this fancy ass vehicle and you're just chilling there with your billionaire buddies, and like no one else is allowed on the truck because it's your own private yacht essentially. So I think that's what the Elon types do. But if you're not the Elon types, like it's pretty egalitarian.
Everyone else is kind of at the same level.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Well, one thing I found interesting was how seldom the "what do you do for work" came up. I was always interested because I was always intrigued. I was like, so what do you do? It's like, oh, I work at DeepMind, or oh, I've been working at Google for 20 years, or oh, I work at YouTube. And I'm like, oh, sick, that's cool. I mentioned to someone that I was a YouTuber, and they thought that meant I worked at YouTube. That's the sort of crowd.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But I was surprised how little that came up in like conversations. I think there's a bit of a unspoken thing around it being not about work.
Yeah.
So it seemed pretty egalitarian and quite fun. But then at nighttime, at nighttime everything lights up because it's in the desert and there's no like light, obviously, so it's pitch black. But like literally everything. So you're supposed to have LED lights on your bike. Everyone is wearing like jackets that light up or like torches on their head. All of the camps are like light up at nighttime with like LED lighting and stuff. All of the most of the art pieces will light up. All of the art trucks will have lighting features. And so if you were to see a picture or a video of it or just walk into it, it would feel like kind of like Alice in Wonderland in the dark kind of vibes. Or I've been told like tripping on acid, where there's just LED lights absolutely everywhere. And a lot of the stuff happens at nighttime, where people are like from 7 p.m. up until like 3 a.m. doing stuff with like DJs and music and all the things. And then they sleep and then wake up at like, I don't know, 11 or 12.
Cool. Okay. Would
recommend.
Any interesting reflections or takeaways? Are you like, oh man, I should be more like X, Y, or Z or something? Or
yeah, a couple. One is that one of the philosophies around Burning Man is sort of being fully present and not like being connected and all that sort of stuff. There was something really cool about the incredible amount of effort that went into creating all these things, only for them to be either burned or torn down a week later. Yeah. It's like that gave me this sense of enjoying the present moment a lot more than I do in day-to-day life. Okay, recognizing that, hey, this thing is ephemeral. Yeah. There's no need to try and capture it through like a video or a photo or something. It's just like, let's just enjoy the thing. It's never going to happen in the same way ever again. And that's okay. We can just enjoy this thing. Like the relationships are going to be ephemeral. I'm probably not going to see a lot of these people ever again, but that's okay. Yeah. It's like while we're in the space together, we can have a nice conversation and we can move on. Yeah. So there was something around reinforcing that lesson of living in the moment and just appreciating things as they are and recognizing the impermanence of stuff. Like everything arises and then fades away, and that's okay. And trying to cling on to things of like, oh, I must cling on to, I don't know, the fame that I currently have on YouTube, or all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's sort of it's just somewhat counterproductive. Okay. That was one of the insights. The other one was that it really inspired me to take hobbies a bit more seriously.
I thought you were a big hobbies guy. I thought you've
always
been...
I'm a big hobbies guy, but like I haven't really improved at the guitar much in the last like 5 years.
Yeah.
Things like that. And there were a few musical type things. A few like one of the camp's offerings that was quite close to us was they just set up a band and anyone could just rock up and play. And so I rocked up, played a few tunes on the guitar, Izzy sang a bit. And then these guys rocked up who were just like complete strangers. They didn't know each other, but one of them was sick at drums, one of them was sick at electric guitar, one of them was on bass, and they were just jamming, and they were so good. And I was like, whoa, this is what good musicians look like. They can just like jam with each other without having to play a song. And that was really inspiring. But then also a lot of the people in our camp were big into DIY. They would, I don't know, a few of them like built their own boats because they lived on a lake or something, and were super into just building stuff. And the seriousness with which they were building stuff outside of their day job was also really inspiring. And I was like, ooh, I kind of want to have a hobby or two that I take sort of this seriously or this sincerely. And I decided I really want to get better at guitar and try my hand at drawing and actually stick to it. So those were, I think, my two big takeaways. Impermanence and enjoying the present moment, and sort of taking hobbies a bit more seriously.
Yeah, nice. Okay. And now where like what are you up to? Where are you now? What are your plans?
Now it's all a bit uncertain. So we're probably going to move out of the UK at some point in the very near future, and we're just trying to figure out where do we want to live, or at least live for the next season of life. We like the idea of living somewhere in Asia. Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Singapore are fairly high up on the potential list. We were thinking Sydney, Australia, but it's kind of far, and one of my priorities is ease of international travel. We want some place that has good weather. Izzy cares about good weather. I care about ease of international travel and low taxes. And so we're sort of just like roaming around to figure out like where do we want to settle down. Hong Kong seems really cool for now. So we're here for a bit, and then maybe we'll check out Singapore. We'll check out Malaysia.
So what are you doing while you're there? You're just doing your usual stuff just in Hong Kong and just seeing the city and stuff.
Yeah, it's not really like, we're trying not to approach it as traveling. We're trying to approach it as like actually living. So previously when I did my digital nomad thing, it ended up being a week or two here and there, which was really tiring and annoying. And so we kind of want to do at least 3 months in a place, maybe even longer. So far we've been in Hong Kong for 2 days. Maybe we'll just commit to doing a year in Hong Kong. Maybe it'll be 3 months, maybe 6 months, who knows? And just sort of playing it by ear to see how things feel. And I'm just getting back into work. It's quite nice being in this time zone because my mornings are completely free. Like no one in the UK is awake. And so I can just deep work in the morning from like, I don't know, 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. because of the jet lag until like 1. Then I went to the gym at 1. And then I had calls from 3. And that's like quite a nice use of time. And so we've reached out on Instagram. Izzy posted on Instagram. I posted on Instagram to see if anyone's around in Hong Kong and wants to hang out. So we've had a few inbound leads.
How are you gonna start living, like kind of living there rather than traveling? Like how do you do that? Are you join like a local badminton club or something?
Yeah, pretty much. It's as simple as setting up routines. So having a place, joining a gym. I want to do racket sports on the daily. So joining the local badminton, paddle, squash, tennis club, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then finding a way to make friends. Which is actually, I think, fairly doable given we've got social media to be able to say, hey, who's around? And lots of inbound from people. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a creator, I'm a medical student, and also building an app on the side, or, that sort of thing. Yeah. So we might organize like a dinner or something for creatory type people, maybe another one for entrepreneurial type people, and use that as like a springboard to start making friends.
Yeah.
And then that's essentially what's involved in living somewhere. All of our possessions are in like 2 suitcases or 3 suitcases. We've got our respective YouTube studios that are here as well. Just got to find a place to stay, set up shop, and give it a go.
Nice, great. Yeah. Wow.
What's been happening back in London?
Life updates. Back in London, told you about the fish tank thing. Huge. What else has been happening? I mean, not much. All the usual stuff, really. Same thing being going on. I mean, it was your wedding a few weeks ago, so we had lots of family around. That was a good time. And before that, just usual kind of stuff, man. I feel like I'm socializing a bunch these days. Yesterday I had dinner with some people who are sort of a few years younger. So I feel like I'm getting kind of old now, where, like It was my birthday about a month ago. I'm now 29 years old. And when people are asking about stuff, um, I find myself saying like, "Oh yeah, like 4 years ago this thing happened, or I did this thing, or like 5 years ago, this thing happened, or
Mm.
whatever." So I was at this dinner yesterday. So this I have a friend who I met through the podcast. I think he initially, he was wondering whether to go to university or not, or just to kind of do online hustle type stuff. And then he worked for Causal, kind of part time while he was at university for a bit, and we just kind of stayed in touch. Um, and he was kind of like in tech circles and so on. And so I had dinner with at his place with a few other similar people. So I think they're like age between 21 to 25, maybe. So like maybe 5 to 10 years younger than me. Um, and one of the towards the start, someone was like, "Oh, are you like big on Twitter?" I was like, "Well, I spent a lot of time on Twitter, but I don't really post anymore." And then I was like, "Yeah, my posting peak was probably like 4 years ago." And then I thought, "Wait, what? 4 years? That's crazy." And yeah, I found yeah, I think like the last few years have just gone by quite quickly. I mean, obviously lots has happened, but um, it is a bit weird now being kind of older than a lot of people who you bump into. So that's kind of interesting. Uh,
Yeah, I found something similar. When people ask me if I'm like playing guitar or piano or something, like how long have you been playing for?
yeah,
And I'm like, oh, since like second year of university, which
I
is
was
like
like 10
10
years
years
ago.
ago. And I was
Yeah,
like, holy crap, I've been playing guitar for 10 years. I really should be a lot better than I currently am.
yeah,
But like,
yeah,
yeah, because if it was like last year, it's like, oh, you've just picked it up, and I feel like I've just picked it up because I
yeah,
haven't been playing since childhood.
yeah, yeah,
Bloody hell,
exactly,
10
exactly, yeah,
years is a very long time.
yeah, yeah. I think I've had the same thing of like, oh man, like what have I been up to the last few years? But Lucia reminded me last night that gotten married and all this kind of stuff, um, which is which is a good point. Yeah, so that's been kind of interesting. I've been getting back into sort of photography and filmmaking a little bit. So I got a camera for my birthday. Lucia got me a camera, and yeah, I used to be into this stuff when I was a teenager. I like got a DSLR and all this kind of stuff, and like um, learned what all the things mean and like how it all works and stuff like that.
So that was like
And
5 years ago.
I was like, I think it was after GCSEs that I bought the
Like
DSLR.
15 years
I
ago.
was
Yeah.
16. I was 16, yeah, like 13 years ago or something.
Mm.
The Nikon D3100, back when Digital Rev was still a YouTube channel. Those guys they're kind of doing their own channels now, Kai and Locke. I don't know if you
Mm.
watch these guys and stuff.
Yeah, occasionally when a new camera
Yeah,
comes out, I'll
yeah, I
watch.
used to love that stuff. Yeah,
His vibe is the same as it was 13 years ago.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I'm getting back into that, which is kind of cool. And okay, so there's a couple of reflections on that. The first is that I'm really grateful that like I had that phase when I was 16 where I, you know, learned about this camera stuff because like there's actually quite a lot that goes into it, and I feel like if I was outside that world, I probably wouldn't pick it up today. I'd probably yeah, I mean, it's just so technical. There's all these like lenses and this and that, and like there's so many technical things that like if you're an outsider to that, you probably just won't pick it up. To be honest, it's probably like, oh, that's some hobby for other people or something like that. Um, so yeah, I think that's one thing where it feels like it's hard. It's hard to like pick up a new thing like that as an adult. Much harder. I think stuff like learning how to code. Again, if I didn't do this when I was 16, there's no way I would have done it at uni. There's no way I would have done it post uni. It just requires like too much free time and just like willpower and stuff like this, and like you'll just have other priorities and like so yeah, that was kind of interesting. Where like I'm glad I have all of that you know photography knowledge so that I can just pick it back up and hit the ground running and like be really into it. And it's fun. I think one common failure mode when it comes to cameras and photography is people like obsessing about gear. I think there's something like there's something really fun about getting really into like the gear and the gear side of a hobby. Of like, oh, I mean, watch all these like camera reviews and all this lens or that lens and this camera, and it's like really fun. Like I was doing that for probably for like a month before I decided which camera I wanted and which lens I wanted to get. I was doing that, and it was really fun. But it's also kind of stupid because it's not that important. I think in the world of photography, like when you read these internet threads and YouTube comments and stuff like that, um, yeah, there's definitely a bit of a trap that you can fall into. But it is fun. Like I enjoy that side of the aquarium stuff as well. Like I have a setup I'm happy with. But yesterday I was like watching some reviews of some lights. Should I get the Chihiros RGB Vivid or the Hyper Spot, whatever like I'm not in the market for either of these. But it's still just kind of fun. But I don't know where I stand on that. Like maybe I don't endorse that. Maybe I don't think I should be like watching these random like gear videos for hobbies. It is just kind of pointless and a waste of time. And you probably end up like spending, more money on gear and focusing on the wrong things or something. Yeah, I mean, I know you're into gear and stuff as well, right? It is just fun.
It is just fun. Yeah. I have realized that this is actually a key part of a hobby, and there's actually nothing wrong with that.
Oh yeah.
So, for example, I kind of want to get into camping. I think I would enjoy camping. So I did this week in the desert, kind of fun. I like the idea of one of my team members, Dan. He lives in Wales. He's got 2 kids, and one of his favorite things to do is to just go off on his own with a backpack and a tent, and just like sleep out in like the hills of Wales with no signal, just like reading a book and making his own food and stuff. And when I first met Dan a few years ago, I was like, come on, that sounds really boring. Now I'm like, damn, that sounds really fun. And I could just, like for Burning Man, Pablo and Victoria, they bought a tent and stuff and all the equipment. And I ended up donating the tent to a charity shop because I kind of wanted to do the research myself. I wanted to really get into like, all right, let me figure out like what's the optimal carbon fiber nano whatever tent for a 1-man setup, a 2-man setup. And I think for me at least, and I guess for you as well, that's just like a really fun part of hobbies.
It's fun.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it depends on what your goals are, really. Like, there are people that do YouTube or whatever, and they have goals of, I don't know, making money. And then they're spending all the time obsessing over gear and not actually making the videos.
Yeah.
If the obsessing over gear is stopping you from doing a thing that's in line with your goals, then don't obsess over the gear. But I think if enjoying gear, I still watch camera reviews and stuff. I still watch tech reviews and desk setup reviews, even though I don't really need anything.
Oh, you still watch desk setup reviews?
Yeah, it's quite fun, especially now. Now I'm sort of going to set up a new studio whenever we figure out where to move to.
Yeah.
So now I'm back in the desk setup thing and in studio inspo, and it's like I think when you're an adult and also have disposable income, like men need their hobbies. It's kind of nice, kind of nice to just be able to sort of imagination is the limit rather than the bank account when it comes to buying new tech now.
Yeah.
So it's actually like I could make whatever studio I want. So let's do something that's really cool rather than back in the day of like, if I can save £300, I can get an extra monitor once a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all that stuff. So I think it's fine.
Yeah, like yesterday I was browsing PC cases, like when you build your own PC. I was like, oh, let me see what like Corsair is up to. That used to be one of the big brands in PC cases. And then there was some like Chinese one called Lian Li or something that used to be kind of edgy and aesthetic and stuff. Let me see what those guys are up to. I was like, oh, maybe I need to build a mini ITX PC. Yeah, I don't know where I stand. Look, I think you haven't actually taken your position on all these things is, look, just depends on what your goals are, man. You kind of decide these goals, for whatever reasons, and then I will tell you how to achieve those goals best. But what I'm trying to get at here is trying to take a position on the goal itself of like, hey, there is this impulse to want to like buy gear and like spend time reading gear reviews, and what is that impulse actually tugging at? And I don't know, for me, I think if it's directed towards a project, for example, like I was setting up the fish tank like a few months ago. It's been like 4 or 5 months, right? And like, I want to set up the fish tank. I obviously need to know like what stuff I can get, right? But like with the photography thing, yeah, I guess like if I'm about, I want to buy a camera and like, take photos of the fish and make a documentary about Nani and, all this kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, need to watch these reviews. But I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's like a decent goal for me to currently be watching lighting reviews of fish tank lights that like I don't need. I'm not going to buy. It is just I don't know. I don't know. Look, I don't know where I stand on this, but I think also you haven't really taken a position, and I think you always take this position of like, look, man, it just depends on what your goals are, and if your goal is to treat, and obviously that's absolutely fine in many cases. Like if someone's coming to you and saying like, hey, how do I like, what should I do on YouTube? Obviously, it depends on what their goals are, and like you're not really in the you're not really in the business of trying to tell them what their goal should be in that case, which is fine. But I think when we're talking about this thing, yeah, I think what I'm wondering is, you know, should I be indulging in this thing of watching gear reviews and stuff like that? Stuff I'm never going to buy. Like, I mean, yeah, like the PC cases. I mean, even the camera lens stuff and the aquarium light stuff. It's like, I don't know. Do you see what I'm getting at?
I see what you're getting at, but I'm confused as to why you seem to want a sort of should to materialize here. That I should do X or I shouldn't do X when it comes to the gear stuff. Obviously, if you're in the market for a camera, then do some research around what the best camera is. Sure,
mate. This is the freaking not overthinking podcast. What else are we going to talk about whether or not we should be doing
so let's take an extreme example. I was watching one of these. There's all these like personal development videos aimed at young men. One of these was around like calling out men for like, I don't know, getting home from work, saying they're so tired, so they sit and watch Netflix, and then they go, while they're watching Netflix, they're on their phone looking at cars that they'll never be able to afford and houses that they'll never be able to afford. And how that's just like a thing. And I was looking at the comments, and there are a lot of people like really resonating with like, oh damn, bro called me out. I always scroll through cars I'm never ever gonna buy, and houses that I can never afford, and watching these like, I don't know, architectural digest videos of what Meghan Markle's $70 million home is like, and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think on that extreme, if someone, I would say that that's probably bad for the soul to be doing that, because it breeds a culture of consumerism and a sense of lack, and all of that kind of stuff. Dissatisfaction. Yeah. So on the extreme end, that's probably it. But at the same time,
maybe the aquarium lights thing is a very benign form of that.
But also some people, I don't know, like our friend Sahib is just into cars. Our friend Akib is just into cars. They just like knowing what the latest model of the Lambo is and what the latest AMG is and G-Wagon and all this stuff.
Yeah.
In the same way that people are into football, in the same way that you're into fish, or I was into Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and just sort of knowing what the meta is, and like, ooh, okay, I wonder what decks are winning the tournaments these days. Ooh, that Master Hyperion Fairy light themed deck.
I used to looking at that stuff.
No.
Oh, okay.
So my example here is about 10 years old.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, because I've kind of been getting back into Pokemon cards a little bit, where I'm like, I'm playing some Pokemon these days with a friend of mine. We just like play online on Pokemon Showdown. And yeah, I love the art, man. Like the cards are just like really cool and stuff. And so recently I've been getting into like looking at the websites of like, oh, what are like the really rare, elusive cards, and how much are they selling for and stuff like this. And then I see like the Instagram ads from like Pokemon cards and like all these like card trading websites and stuff like that. It's just like pretty cool. And I was thinking, ooh, maybe I want to start buying some cool Pokemon cards. But like,
so on that note, have you come across a guy called Pat Flynn?
I've heard of him, but I think through you.
Yeah. So
you said he made a bunch of money doing Pokemon cards or something.
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, sort of. So he's now a friend of mine. He was previously famous for starting a podcast and a website called smartpassiveincome.com. And so that's how I got to know his stuff.
I've almost certainly been on that website. Yeah.
Yeah. But then a few years ago, he decided during lockdown that he was going to get into Pokemon cards because
Pokemon.
his son was watching videos of Pokemon cards, and Logan Paul did the unboxing and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
And then Pat got into Pokemon cards and decided to start a YouTube channel with his son called A Deep Pocket Monster, which is now at like over 1 million subscribers or something absurd like that. And they're getting deals with the Pokemon company and exclusive access to all the things. And it's just so random. They're like, initially when Pat came on as a guest speaker for our YouTuber Academy in like 2020, 2021, his specialist subject was passive income and how to make money through affiliates and stuff. And in 2022 and 2023, it was like, how did you grow a YouTube channel so fast in like an entertainment niche? Because he just decided to start this channel completely from scratch, didn't seed it at all with his existing audience, and no one in his existing audience cares about Pokemon cards. He just really went into this hobby. And he says that the hobby was really fun because actually there's this whole world of like Pokemon collectors who are adults, and also it gives you a way to connect with the kids, and also it's a way that he bonds with his son and does this creative project with his son.
Yeah.
And it's just like really cool. So I think there's something around Pokemon, or like even like Lego for adults, the sort of just sort of coming back to this idea of taking hobbies seriously.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, one view of the meaning of life is that it's simply about enjoying the passage of time, and hobbies help us enjoy the passage of time. And I think on this gear note as well, I've heard from guitarists that a lot of the appeal of the electric guitar is in the gear, like the different pedals and the different modulations and the different this and the different that.
Yeah,
it's also like reminds me of how back in the day, 15 years ago, when I started playing StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
You know, one would think that the point of playing a video game is to play the video game. But I actually found that watching streamers play StarCraft and watching commentary videos and stuff was actually more fun than playing it because it's less stressful. It's less like adrenaline inducing to queue for the ladder and end up having to then be on and trying to get your build order perfect and trying to not get like ganked by the Zerglings and stuff. And it was just kind of nice just watching other people play the video game. Yeah. And a cynic might look at that and say, bro, you're missing the point. The point is to play the video game yourself. But I don't know. It depends what your goals are. I think the point is to enjoy. And if enjoyment is found through the watching of gear reviews or the watching of pro gamers rather than doing the thing, I think that's totally fine.
I think there is a place for just raw entertainment in life. And if you're watching gear reviews of StarCraft or whatever, you know, not in excess, then that's probably fine. Okay, we better start to wrap up, but I had a business idea that I wanted to float by your way. So, all right, here's the pitch. There are thousands and thousands of podcasts out there, right? There's obviously really big ones like Not Overthinking and Joe Rogan and stuff like this, right? But also, like for any niche, there's like a bunch of podcasts, you know, that are, you know, across the spectrum of like regular, you know, I think there are a bunch of podcasts that are regular, at least like monthly or often weekly or every 2 weeks or something. They are being taken relatively seriously in that, like, if you're doing anything every week or even every month, like you are taking it seriously. Like this is something you care about. This is something you're investing in. And there's a ton of these podcasts out there that are weekly or monthly or every 2 weeks or whatever. And I think the vast majority of podcasts are of the format of having like some guests speaking about the topic. So in whatever niche, you know, you'll bring on some guests from that niche, whatever. And most people are not at the level of Joe Rogan, where like you fly the guest over to come into your podcast studio, and then you sit there and, you know, chat to them. Most people are like Riverside or some Zoom call or whatever, and then you upload that kind of thing. And the guests that go on these podcasts, they're not doing a podcast every week or every month, even if the podcaster might be recording a podcast every week or every month. So the guest typically has a shit microphone, right? The podcaster, you know, if they're semi-serious and they're doing a regular podcast, they probably have a decent microphone. The guest probably does not have a good microphone, and it just sucks to listen to one of these things, okay? So here's the idea. It's called the Microphone Project. Basically, microphone as a service for podcasts. So you pay a monthly fee, depending on how often you need a microphone shipped to a guest. And the Microphone Project, You basically tell the microphone product, hey, in 2 weeks, I've got this guest coming on, they live at this address. The service ships the guest a microphone in time for the podcast. And then once the podcast is done, it takes it off of their hands and gives it to the next person in the network who needs a microphone. So basically, microphone subscription type thing, so that a sort of normal, serious but not like Joe Rogan type podcaster can have their guests having good microphones. And for example, when Jason Blakely came on our pod a few months ago, I really care about audio quality, and so we shipped him a microphone. I mean, I just ordered it on Amazon US and got it delivered to his address. But then it's just like too much faff. He was like, "Oh, how do I return this to you?" And I was like, "I don't even know how you'd return it to me. Like, it's just too much faff. Like, just keep the microphone, man." And so I think if there's a service that basically handles the logistics of like shipping microphones, I mean the same microphone. It's not like you're buying a new microphone every time. But yeah, I think that would be kind of interesting. I sort of briefly looked into like FedEx and UPS courier prices. It seems like in the US, it'll probably cost about $20. If you're a consumer, it'll probably cost about $20 to get a microphone from like New York to Chicago or something. Just like from one city to another city, it probably costs about $20 if it's like not super urgent. I think with like business rates and if you're doing it frequently enough, maybe you can get that down to like $10 to $15 per thing. And so, if you've got like a monthly podcast, you'd probably be paying the microphone project like $25 a month or something. And then obviously that would get multiplied by however often you need a microphone delivered. If it's a weekly podcast, maybe like $99 a month or something like this. Anyway, that's kind of the idea. I mean, the margins would be quite low. Like you'd be making like, I don't know, $5 a month maybe from customers. But I thought it might be kind of interesting service.
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of interesting service. Broadly, I would say it's probably a pretty terrible business idea.
Yeah.
Because the total addressable market, there are thousands of podcasters, but still, that's a tiny, tiny total addressable market.
It's not
the margin of each product.
Yeah.
It's not a big business. It's not even a lifestyle business. It's a business that requires quite a lot of headache.
No, I mean you're just the middleman between the person and like UPS.
Yeah,
like the UPS courier is basically doing the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't want to shit on your idea, but like, it's notoriously hard. Even, a company like Amazon is built on logistics and returns and ease of returns and the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Even getting a UPS delivery to go to a person's house has to guarantee that they'll be in for the thing.
Yeah,
you're going to need an enormous sort of warehouse. You're going to need a lot of stock of microphones because what if, the microphone in Chicago can't actually be sent to them and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's almost like what Tim Ferriss does is just pay the $30 to ship someone a SM7B, an MV58 or whatever the basic Shure microphone is.
Yeah.
And it's almost cheaper to just do that rather than try to deal with the service. So it's a cool concept, but
brutal.
I don't think I would back it as a business idea.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it also seems like Lucia made the point that the AI audio touch-up technology is kind of probably going to get to a point where even on a crappy microphone you can get like podcast studio quality sound pretty soon.
Yep.
So yeah, overall bad business idea for many reasons. But yeah, it's just something.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Something I'd thought about.
VoicePal is doing well. We launched it.
Oh yeah, how's that? What's the update there? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're up to $20K a monthly recurring revenue or something.
Nice. Okay.
Which is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
A couple of thousand paying users, that sort of thing. Stats look pretty good. People seem to be enjoying the product, and we're rolling out some new features, and it's quite exciting. I do my before I went off the grid, I would do my morning walks where I would have my VoicePal with me, and that would help me like create stuff.
So I tried using it the other day. I was on a car ride and I tried I thought I hit the like record button, but like in the car, I can't do too much. I kind of just need to have a conversation with it, but I couldn't tell it when to stop recording and like respond to what I had said to it. So I say a bunch of stuff and then I'm like, what do you think about this? Or like, blah, 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 blah. And then it should respond. And then I should be able to have that kind of dialogue. Whereas it seems like it's very focused on like, you record a snippet, it uploads a snippet, the thing then responds, you have to click send, the thing then responds. You kind of like have to physically engage with the phone quite a lot.
Yeah, it's not like a Chat GPT audio conversational tool.
Okay.
It's not. Yeah, it's not a real time conversational tool.
But then how do you do it? Because I thought you just go for walks in the park and you're just talking to it.
Yeah, but I'm monologuing for like 15 minutes, and then I hit done, and then within a few seconds it's uploaded, it's transcribed, and it will ask me the follow-up questions,
Okay.
and I'll just look through my phone to see which of the follow-up questions are interesting and hit record on that one, and then start talking.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I am minimally interacting with my phone.
Yeah.
Like I'm speaking 15 minutes and looking at the phone to find the next follow-up questions, that kind of thing. Yeah, and that's also very doable in a car by just sort of tapping the thing, just like you would hit next song on a thing.
Yeah. So when's the hard launch?
Interfaced with it. It has been pretty much hard launched. Now it's just a case of sort of.
I thought it was a
ramping
soft
up.
launch, mate. You did the soft launch like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, the hard launch will be when I make a YouTube video about it. Which will probably be in a few months.
Huh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Keep the testing going. Make sure the product's good. Make sure it's bug free. All that stuff.
Cool. Okay.
Mate, I'm becoming a SaaS co-founder.
SaaS co-founder, love it. B2C SaaS.
Yeah. That's the one.
All right, nice one.
All right. Good stuff.
Anything you want to say before we wrap up? Any reading recommendations? Maybe I can give a reading recommendation.
I started reading A Return to Modesty this morning.
Oh yeah, what do you think?
It's very sort of Case Against the Sexual Revolution kind of vibes.
It is similar vibes, yeah.
Yeah, similar vibes. I liked the stuff around chivalry. I sort of flicked around it a bit. Read the intro, read the conclusion, read the bit about chivalry. I thought, it's interesting. I broadly vibe with the stuff, but I kind of want to read it properly.
Yeah. That's a very good book if anyone's interested in these things. It's called A Return to Modesty, Rediscovering the Lost Virtue, or something like this, by a woman called Wendy Shallett. A good thing I read recently is a very short book called The Two Cultures by C.P. Snow. Have you heard of this?
No, what is that?
It's quite a sort of... It's a relatively famous like essay, basically. Very short book / essay. From some point in the sort of, I think, mid-1900s or something, about the growing divide between the culture of the sciences and the culture of the humanities, where like, a few 200 or 300 years ago, we wouldn't have like separated things out into like, the sciences and the humanities, and like, I mean, they're almost like camps at this point where it's like, those guys, humanities bros or whatever, or like STEM bros, or something like this. And like, if you are at university, there is quite a different culture between the people who do humanities subjects and the people who do science subjects, and like the cultures are very divided. Anyway, this was kind of just an essay about this phenomenon, particularly in the UK. I think this is probably quite a UK phenomenon. I think the guy kind of talks about how in the US, because things get specialized at a much later stage, it's not like right in undergrad you're kind of becoming specialized, and really right at A levels you're getting specialized into either the sciences or the humanities or something like this. And he kind of talks about how like it's pretty crazy that So I think this I'll read out one highlight and then we can end it. But he kind of makes this point that it seems like modern intellectual culture, if you think about an intellectual, modern intellectual culture is almost exclusively focused on the humanities. All right. And this is a bad situation. This is a loss. And so here's the thing. He goes, I remember G.H. Hardy was a mathematician, once remarking to me in mild puzzlement sometime in the 1930s, have you noticed how the word intellectual is used nowadays? There seems to be a new definition which certainly doesn't include Rutherford or Eddington or Dirac or Adrian or me. It does seem rather odd, don't you know? So basically, like all these like super famous scientists, mathematicians or whatever, when you think of an intellectual, you are not thinking about these guys. You are thinking about,
the philosophy
Marx
bro,
or
or like
some
the
continental
sociologists.
philosopher,
Yeah.
some like German guy, whatever. This is what some political theorist or something. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Very short book slash essay. I think it would be of interest to the not overthinking audience.
Nice.
Yeah,
I just bought it on
just throwing that
Amazon.
out
It's
there.
amazing how they can sell a short essay for £15 on the Kindle store.
Yeah,
Mate.
yeah. I mean, you could probably find a PDF. It's probably like a 20-page PDF or something for free online. But yeah, it's good. Anyway, good to catch up. We're gonna
Good stuff.
be more regular about this. And
Oh yeah,
thanks
we're in different
everyone.
countries now, so this is our like weekly catch up.
Yeah, weekly touch base.
Nice.
All right, nice one.
Good stuff. Catch you later.
Bye.